Imagine this. You finally have enough money. Not maybe someday money. Not I can afford it if I finance it money. Real money. The kind that gives you choices. The kind that makes expensive things feel affordable. For years, you had a picture in your head. A dream house. A luxury car. First-class flights. Fancy restaurants. A closet full of clothes you used to see only in advertisements. Maybe a beach house. Maybe a penthouse overlooking a city. Maybe the freedom to wake up whenever you want and never worry about a paycheck again. You spent years chasing that picture. You worked late. You said no to vacations. You skipped things your friends were doing. You watched your bank account grow while telling yourself just a little longer. Once I make more money, I'll finally live. And eventually, you make it. You open your banking app. The number is bigger than you ever imagined. Your investments are growing. Your debt is gone. Your income is higher than your expenses. You don't have to check your account before ordering dinner anymore. And then one Saturday morning, you realize something strange. You don't want the dream anymore. Not because you failed, not because you couldn't afford it, you simply outgrew it. And that's when wealth starts becoming something completely different. Think about the house you dreamed about when you were broke. Maybe you imagined a huge house in a beautiful neighborhood. 4 bedrooms, a massive kitchen, a swimming pool, a 3-car garage, a perfect backyard. You used to look at houses online and think, that's where I'll live when I make it. Years later, you can actually afford one. You visit the neighborhood. You walk through the house. The kitchen is beautiful. The backyard is huge. The garage could fit 3 cars. The real estate agent smiles and says, this could be yours. And you just stand there because instead of excitement, you feel nothing. Maybe even a little anxiety. You suddenly start thinking about property taxes, maintenance, cleaning, repairs, security, the amount of space you would barely use. And you realize something. You didn't actually want a huge house. You wanted the feeling you thought the huge house would give you. Security, freedom, success, proof that you made it. But now that you have financial security, you don't need the house to prove it anymore. Then there's the car. For years, you had a dream car saved on your phone. You knew the model, the color, the interior. You watched reviews. You imagined pulling into a parking lot and seeing people turn their heads. Back then, the car represented success. It meant, I finally made it. Now you can walk into the dealership and buy it without destroying your finances. The salesperson shows you the keys. You sit inside. The leather feels perfect. The engine sounds incredible. And you realize you actually like your current car. It gets you where you need to go. It's reliable. You don't worry about every scratch. You don't need to impress anyone. The dream car didn't become worse. You just stopped needing what it represented. And this is one of the strangest things about becoming financially successful. Money can give you the ability to buy almost anything, but it can't force you to want it. When you're broke, everything expensive looks like freedom. When you become financially secure, you start asking a different question. Not, can I afford this? But, do I actually want this? That's a completely different question, because when you don't have money, your choices are controlled by your limitations. When you have money, your choices are controlled by your values. And sometimes you discover that your values have changed. Maybe your dream was to quit your job. For years, you imagined it. You hated the alarm clock. You hated commuting. You hated sitting in meetings. You dreamed about the day you could finally say, I don't need this job anymore. Then one day, you actually reach financial independence. Your investments can cover your lifestyle. You have enough savings. You could quit tomorrow, so you do something unexpected. You don't quit. You go to work on Monday, not because you have to, because you want to. And suddenly, your job feels different. Your boss doesn't control your future anymore. Your paycheck isn't keeping you trapped. You can say no. You can walk away. You can take a 6-month break if you need to. You can change careers. You can work fewer hours. The job didn't become your dream. Freedom became your dream. And now you have it. This is why financial independence is so misunderstood. People think the goal is to stop working, but maybe the real goal is to make work optional. There's a huge difference. If you hate your job and can't leave, you're trapped. If you love your job and can leave, you're free. And sometimes freedom changes what you want. Maybe you dreamed about traveling the world. You imagined luxury hotels, private beaches, business class flights, restaurants with menus you couldn't pronounce. For years you thought, once I have money, I'll travel constantly. Then you finally get the money. You take the expensive trips, and they're incredible for a while. But after the 5th luxury hotel, something changes. You start missing your own bed. You miss cooking breakfast. You miss your neighborhood. You miss sitting outside with a cup of coffee. You realize you don't want to spend 6 months a year traveling. You want 3 great trips, and the rest of the year, you want a quiet life. That's another strange thing money can reveal. You may discover that your dream life was designed by advertising, not by you. Think about how much of modern life is built around convincing you that you need more. A bigger house, a newer phone, a nicer watch, a more expensive car, designer clothes, luxury vacations, exclusive restaurants. The message is everywhere. You're not successful enough yet. You're not living enough yet. You're not winning enough yet. Buy this. Upgrade that. Move there. Drive this. And maybe for years you believed it, because when you don't have money, you assume people with money must be happier. But eventually, if you become wealthy enough, you discover something uncomfortable. Rich people can still be bored. They can still feel lonely. They can still wake up on Monday and wonder what they're doing with their life. Money removes financial problems. It doesn't automatically create meaning. And maybe that's why your dream life doesn't feel like a dream anymore, because your definition of a good life changed. When you were 25, you wanted excitement. At 30, you wanted status. At 35, you wanted security. At 40, maybe you just want peace, a quiet morning, healthy relationships, time with your family, a body that feels good, work that doesn't drain you, a home you actually enjoy being in, and enough money that you don't have to say yes to things you hate. Your dream became smaller, but your life became bigger. Imagine your old self walking into your current life, the version of you from 10 years ago, the person who was stressed about money, the person who checked their bank account before buying something, the person who thought they needed $1 million to finally be happy. They walk into your home. They see your investments. They see your savings. They see that you don't have debt. They see the freedom you have. They would probably think you made it, but then they notice something. You aren't driving the most expensive car. You aren't wearing designer clothes every day. You aren't living in a mansion. You aren't constantly traveling. You're sitting on a normal couch, drinking coffee, maybe reading, maybe spending time with someone you love. And your younger self might ask, "That's it?" And you would smile, because now you understand something they didn't. The goal was never to build the most impressive life. The goal was to build a life you actually enjoy living. This is where money becomes powerful, not when it helps you buy more, but when it helps you need less. You stop chasing every promotion. You stop comparing your life to strangers online. You stop buying things because everyone else has them. You stop saying, "I'll be happy when." You start saying, "This is enough." And enough is one of the most powerful financial numbers nobody talks about, because there is no universal number for enough. For one person, enough might be $50,000 a year. For another, it might be $100,000. For someone else, it might be $300,000. The number isn't the point. The point is knowing when additional money stops meaningfully improving your life, because if you never define enough, there is no finish line. You can make $50,000 and want $100,000. Then $100,000 becomes $200,000. Then $200,000 becomes $500,000. Then $500,000 becomes $1 million. Then $1 million becomes $5 million. And suddenly, you spent your entire life climbing a ladder without ever asking where it was leaning. Maybe that's what happened to you. You spent years climbing, and now you're finally high enough to see the view. But instead of immediately climbing higher, you look around. You look at your life, your home, your family, your friends, your time, your freedom, and you ask, what am I actually trying to reach? Maybe you don't need another $1 million. Maybe you need another Saturday with your family. Maybe you don't need the bigger house. Maybe you need fewer things. Maybe you don't need early retirement. Maybe you need work that doesn't make you miserable. Maybe you don't need to become richer. Maybe you need to become more intentional, because there is a point where money stops being about accumulation and starts being about allocation. How will you spend your time? Who will you spend it with? What problems are worth solving? What experiences are worth paying for? What things are worth owning? And what things aren't worth your attention anymore? The funny thing is, you may spend half your life trying to afford your dream life, only to discover that the best part of becoming wealthy is realizing you don't need most of it. You don't need the mansion. You don't need the Lamborghini. You don't need the private jet. You don't need everyone to know you're successful. You don't even need to look successful. You just need enough freedom to live according to your own definition of success. And maybe your dream life was never the life you imagined when you were broke. Maybe your dream life is simply this: waking up without financial anxiety, having enough money invested that tomorrow doesn't scare you, being able to take care of your family, having control over your time, doing work that matters to you, living somewhere you feel comfortable, and going to sleep at night knowing you don't have to prove anything to anyone. So if you finally reach the point where you can afford the life you once dreamed about and suddenly don't want it anymore, don't feel guilty. You didn't waste your time. The dream helped you climb. It gave you a direction. It pushed you when you needed motivation. But dreams are allowed to change. Your younger self wanted things. Your Your older self may want peace, and that's not failure, that's growth. Because real wealth isn't being able to buy everything you want. Real wealth is reaching the point where you can look at almost anything and calmly say, I could afford that, then walk away because you don't need it. That's freedom. And maybe that's the dream you were actually chasing all along.